Hey, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, class. I am Ms. Tappin, and I will be presenting on Unit 13 for CVQ. Introduction. Preparing land for planting is one of the most important parts of cultivating abundance. Whether you're planting fruit trees, wildlife cassiders, or an annual garden, prepping the soil is the first step or the first important step. A key to establishing plants in any difficult area is to nurture them through the establishment phase. In doing this, it aids in providing protection, support, and gradually reducing the degree of thus exposing them from any difficult condition or harsh condition as they thrive in the climate. So a brief overview of this unit is based on proper, prepared, and established planting materials and its 4 elements. Now, the 4 elements of competency in this unit, we have the first one is to prepare growing media. The second one is to select materials for planting. The third is to prepare plants produce for planting. And the final element of competency is to insert products into growing area. Now, our first element of competency is where we prepare growing media. Now, the growing media is prepared as directed. Some examples of growing media, we have the soil itself, fertilizer or nutrients that can incorporate into the soil. We have materials for mulching, like for example, you have paddy shells, dry grass, straws, dry straws, or dry grass. We also have the dark mulch or the bark from trees, etc. To prepare or to appropriate tools are chosen to carry out the task given according to the guidelines and safety working practices according to employ. Now, when selecting your tools for preparing the soil, there should be appropriate tools or tools appropriate or tools that can use to facilitate that type of task. Cleaning procedures are performed and hygiene practices are followed according to enterprise guidelines or the school's guidelines. When entering into the garden, it is important that you follow these cleaning procedures or hygiene practices. For example, you have washing of hands, washing of hands. This aids in preventing cross-contamination or just naturally washing of your hands. Work area are tidied and materials stored neatly and according to enterprise guidelines. Now, after finish selecting your tools, taking it down into the garden or to your school garden, it is important after you finish using those tools that you wash them, clean them, tidy them, and place them back into the storage room neatly as possible. Here we have a picture showing the different or the procedure used to um wash tools, or the picture shown for the tools. Second element we have is to select materials for planting. Plant materials are selected which is of defined size, suitable and suitable for use in the planting process as directed. Work practices are employed which minimize plant damage. Here we have some pictures showing the different types of materials or methods used to carry out these procedures. We have sealants, and there is cutting. We also have planting. Some examples of some of the work practices that can use to prevent or to promote proper care of the plant or sealing. We have the first one is mulching, which would prevent the soil from being too dry. Now, when watering the plant and you apply the mulching practice or the mulching method, it helps to retain moisture into the soil, which would help the plant. We have pruning also, which is another practice use or work practice use. And the final picture at the bottom there, we have removing of unwanted vegetation from the garden. It is important that you remove unwanted vegetations when you plant. This aids in your sealing or your plant growing or thriving a bit more, because weeds, unwanted vegetation, like for example vines, that suppresses your plant from thriving or growing. The third element is to prepare plant products for planting. Materials are prepared neatly, cleanly, and evenly to the defined size. Storage procedures and hygiene practices are followed according to enterprise guidelines. Here we have some picture showing you some examples of how neat and clean the seed box is being prepared and it should be stored. We have some seeds also stored in containers, different size, different shapes, and it is also being stored in the storage room. At the bottom now we have tools after finish use, after using, washing of your tools, and after you finish washing of your tools, you place them back into the storage room. The fourth element is to insert plant products into growing areas. Tools are chosen appropriate to the task being given, undertaken, used according to guidelines and safety in the workplace. Placement, spacing, depth, orientation, and techniques used are according to planting methods and species recommended. Now here we have some pictures showing you the different placement, how you place your seedling into the soil. Then we have spacing. This depends on the different type of plant or seedling that you would want to grow in your garden. It requires a certain space. Let's say, for example, this here you have some pak choy, and when you put the seedlings, let's say for example, you give them 4, 5, 6 inch, and then you place another seedling. The reason why you would do that is to give that particular seedling space or room to grow. All right, we have depth, which would determine how far or how deep or steep you would want to place your plant. Let's say, for example, your cherry tree or mango tree or banana sucker. If you would want to, the depth is required. You don't want to put it too deep, too low. You don't want to put it too high. You just want to put it at the correct size or at the correct um, surface to aid in proper growth and also to help the roots penetrate down further into the soil. We also have direct planting, where you would put the seeds into the soil directly, spreading over the soil evenly, and we also have transplanting. Now, growing media covering is even, and to the required depth and com compaction. Water and fertilizers are applied evenly and volumes specified by the supervisor. Now, after you finish planting your seedlings or your plant or your cherry mango tree, and you want to give them some fertilizer in the garden now, your supervisor or your teacher would want to, I think we discussed this in the last class, where you'd want to measure out your fertilizer, and you don't want to use too much or too little of your fertilizer um to damage the plant or not to have an effective growth in applying the fertilizer. Now, planting methods and materials needed. We have handing planting, hand planting or handing planting, where you would use your hands. You can also have the assisting planting with the use of machines, or we also have seeds. Those are materials needed, seedlings, trees. Here you have your examples, your mango and your cherry tree. Growing media, that is the soil or the fertilizers needed, along with your mulching materials. Trimming of the trees, trimming, and also washing. Here we have 3 activities which we can do after the PowerPoint is being presented. Thank you for your undivided attention and for listening. And this ends my presentation on Unit 13.